So there are some differences that I want to mention, some things that you may run into that are different between Java and .NET. One of the big syntactical differences is going to be properties. Okay, so be aware of that. In the Java world, we're typically going to have gets and sets, get type, set type, those kind of things. Whereas in .NET, C#, we're literally just going to have a property that we go assign and get values from. Another thing to remember is that we're going to have some conventional differences, such as our casing. So let's remember, in .NET, we're going to be used to what's basically termed Pascal casing. And so here's an example of Pascal casing. We've got our add numbers, and the two words add numbers, even though they are shoved together, are both capitalized. Okay, it makes it a little bit easier for us to read, at least for me. And then in Java, you're going to see things like camel casing. Okay, so here's an example of the same calling sequence, whereas we would have add, that would be lowercase, and then the numbers part would be uppercase. So just understand that's something that's different. Also, another thing that you'll run into, you can run into initializer errors, and that's just because it's one of those things that's a little bit different between C# and .NET versus Java, and that is you can't have a property or method that's going to be the same as your type. Okay, and so what you'll end up happening is this really strange error that you get inside of your .NET C# binding library, and it'll say something like, hey, your initializer that's different than what I'm expecting, and you're like, hey, what's going on here? It's just going to be something that you need to pay attention to, and I'll show you what that means when we get into some code. Now, we're going to go and we're going to switch over into Visual Studio and Eclipse and look at some code. Basically, we're going to start with some default operations so you can see what happens there. And in this, we're basically just going to start by plugging in a jar file and letting it work. And then in the binding libraries, we'll let that work. It's going to handle some capitalization for us. All right, so let's switch over and we're going to go into Visual Studio, and believe it or not, we're actually also going to jump in and show just a little bit of code in Eclipse. All right, so here we are. We've jumped over into Eclipse. This is a project that I've got set up. It's got some fairly simple methods inside of it. This is just for example purposes. So let's go in and let's start off by taking a look at basic class file that I've got. And so in here, I've got something showing my company com.scalabledevelopment.math, so we can think this is going to be a math library. And then we've got a class here, and I've defined this as just going to be some mathematical operations. All right, so notice here that I've got some integer values set up. This will make more sense as we look at code later on, not necessarily with the default configurations, what's going on. But I think here's some important pieces to look at. I've got a number of methods defined. Notice that I've got a couple of static methods. I conveniently called them static add. Notice that one set takes a series of floats, another takes a series of integers. I've kind of got the same thing going down here. I've got some multiplication methods, got some subtraction methods, and a few others. And some of them are static, some of them are not.